Sklar.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. I remember you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. My wife's
Yeah.
Sahaba.
And I go wherever he goes.
Yes.
Yes.
So sorry for
We
your
have
loss.
seen you way back then.
Yeah, I remember back in Hebrew school.
Probably.
Yeah, and we haven't been there in a long time because we're going to the Orthodox one where Dan and Gil used to be, between Tehillah.
Okay.
So that's where we're going for
Got it.
many, many years.
That's my wife, Debbie.
I gave a young Warren Sklar. We knew him when he was pretty young.
And he's still young, but not as young as he was
So that's
way
Mark.
back then.
I know that's Warren. Warren.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Plus the red hair. He always offered me pizza on the way. Elliot, I remember you.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Sorry for your loss. Your family is special to us. You see them at the synagogue. They're always cordial. You guys were cordial. Make a little trouble once in a while. Hi, I'm Morris.
You would never have thought not to come. Let's put it that way.
I looked up your father. Your father wasn't mentioned in the obituary.
It was probably,
My wife said. I think
yeah,
it was
probably
more
it's
like
an oversight. I said it couldn't be.
I think that's maybe the particular way. Because we were on the phone with directors and he just asked for certain people and names, but he didn't
But I
ask
think it
about
was his fault. It's weird. It was her husband.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so we were wondering about it.
We had out 4 years later.
Yeah, he
3 years
passed
ago.
about
Right. And in his obituary, she was mentioned.
Right,
So,
exactly.
see, we looked it up.
Yeah, and that was, they were still living in the same house.
Where was that?
And it burned itself.
So where do you guys live?
Well, my wife and I live in Tampa.
Oh,
Tampa, Florida.
we could have come and visited you. We were there for the week of Thanksgiving.
Oh, really?
Because my son from California comes there to, what do you call it? The section of the Indian shore.
Oh, Indian Rocks?
No, Indian shores.
Indian Shores?
Right. That's where his mother-in-law is. She couldn't travel anymore. So he's that week. The kids can see her because they're all from school. So that's their time with her. So we decided instead of having to fly to California, it's much closer.
Yeah.
So you live in Tampa. You live.
Just outside of
He used to live in Oregon. Well, actually, did too for 1 year. In where? Northern Virginia. Yeah, well, this is close to where we live. Oh,
blessing you said is, blessed are you, Lord, sovereign of the universe, the true judge. Although it's not comfortable,
Over here.
no, you're more than welcome. You sit down. Now you ruined the surprise. Everybody knows you're speaking. The blessing that we said is, blessed are you, Lord, sovereign of the universe, the true judge. Although it's not comfortable, although it's not something that we look forward to, but we accept the judgment. And what I would like to do today, besides the traditional prayers that are said at every service, I'd like to shine a little bit of a light on a day like today and maybe explain how we view, in our tradition, how we view passing and what we can do for somebody who has passed on. We begin today's service with 3 Psalms. Psalm number 1, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo yhalach ba'atzas rishoyim u'b'derech hatoyim lo yamad u'b'moshev leitzim lo yashav ki im b'suras adinoi cheftzoi u'b'suraso yehege yomim v'loila v'hoyo ke'eit shasul apal gemoyim asher piryo yitan b'itoi v'aleho lo yibor v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach lo chen harishoyim ki im kamoyetz asher tedofen haruach al kein lo yikumu rishoyim b'mishpot v'chatoyim b'das tzadikim ki yedeya adinoi derech tzadikim v'derech rishoyim tovet. Everybody understood? So we'll go to the next one. Nobody made any noise, so I figured you all understood. Psalm 15. Mizmor leDavid adinoi mihi yogur bo yolecha mi yishkon b'har kachecha hoylech tomim v'foyel tzedek v'dever emes v'vovai lo yirogel al shonoi lo yasel re'eu ra v'cherpa lo nasal kroivoi nivzo be'enav nimas v'esiri adinoi yechabed nishbar lo hora lo yomer kasper lo nasum b'neshech v'shoichav al noki lo lokach oisa eila lo yimot li'olam. The Song of David. Lord, who may sojourn in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy mountains? One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from his heart, who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor casts disgrace towards a neighbor, and whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in the awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to personal hurt and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. And Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid adinoi roi lo yechsor b'nois deshayar b'tzeni amei menuchas yinahaleni nafshi yishavev yancheni b'magli tzedek l'man shemoi gam ki elech b'geitz ha'moves lo iro ra ki ato imodi shivtecha u'mishantecha hemo yenachmuni taroich l'fanei shulchan ha'getzor roi dishanta b'Hashem en roishi koisi revoya achtoi v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shafti b'beis adinoi la'orech yomim. A Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in the righteous path for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley overshadowed with death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. And for a woman of valor, a special woman, we like to say a couple verses from the last chapter of the book of Proverbs. Some of you may be familiar with these verses because there are those who sing it every Friday night. Eishes chayil mi yimsa verachok mipnini mechra botach bole balo v'shalolo yachsor sheker hachein vehevel hayofi isha yiras adidoi hites alol tnula mipriyadeha bihalua b'shorim asel. Today we're given a task to try to summarize 86 years, 11 months and 11 days, and to try to put it in a couple sentences. And that's something that's a task that's too difficult to do, even for those who knew your mother, your sister for all these years, as well as it's important to know what's the purpose of a eulogy. The Talmud says that the purpose of a eulogy is for people. First, it says that to get people to cry, and the reason behind it is for people to realize the loss that we have and what we can do about it. As the book of Ecclesiastes writes in Hebrew, it says, "Tov laleches lebeis ovel milaleches lebeis mishta." It's better to go to a house of mourning than a house of festivity. Meaning to say, you are going to gain a lot more by going to a funeral than going to a wedding. Going to a wedding, besides that everybody gets a headache, either from the music or from the alcohol, but you don't really take lessons with you. You're happy. You had a good meal. When you come to a funeral, you're going to learn about an individual, and especially over here, there's so much to say and there's so many greatness to this great woman that it's important to take lessons and see how we could try to live her life, emulate her, and try to leave off where she left off. I want to share with you, my great-grandfather grew up in the Bronx, in New York, and took a boat to go study in Israel in the late 20s. It took close to 3 weeks for him to go to study in yeshiva in Israel. When he left, everybody came to say goodbye to him. And everybody was waving and they were blowing kisses and all the regular way of saying goodbye. When he arrived at the shores of Yafo, it was 3 o'clock in the morning on a rainy Wednesday. Nobody was there. And he had to figure out how to get to Hebron, where he was going to go study. In essence, it should be the opposite. Everybody should have been worried when he left. Who knows if he's ever going to make it? Who knows if bandits are going to get onto the ship? Who knows what kind of trials and tribulations will they have on the way there? But there should have been a big entourage, a big party, and balloons and everything else waiting for him when he arrived, because you made it. And really, that's the story with life. When a baby is born, even prior to a baby being born, we have showers and we're all excited. And when a baby is born, there's flowers and there's parties and everybody wants to come and see the baby. And when a person passes on, we're sad. But if you think about it, nobody knew when she was born what kind of life, what kind of legacy she's going to have. Today, we are all a testament, and will continue her life, that she really made it. She has really turned this world into a better place. The world is not the same. With all the negativity that we know about, and with all issues that have come across her life, all the trials and tribulations that every person goes through, she has conquered them. And she has really lived up to the highest expectation. And she leaves over a beautiful legacy, which will continue her life. So in essence, this is not as sad as if you look at it like this is over. It's not really over. It's just a different chapter. And I'd like to expand on this for a couple minutes, how we view death. I believe that not so many people view this the same way. Not so many religions actually emphasize this as much. But the purpose of being born is to die. Meaning to say, the purpose that we're born, we're not better off being born, if you look at it from a spiritual aspect. Every person is a combination of a human body and a spiritual soul. And neshama, when God created Adam, it says, and he blew into him a breath of life, which is called nishmas chayim, which is called the neshama, the soul. A soul is part of God. A soul does not die. So if you think about it, part of God is with us. And we will live as long as we're granted to live. Some are going to live 40, 50, 60, 80, 90 years. And everything that we do, we take the soul with us, up and down. Sometimes we drag it through the mud. Sometimes it has a difficult experience. And if you think about it, a soul which is pure and doesn't make mistakes, why is it born? Why is it here in this world? If the goal that people think is that you have to return your soul to God the way it was given to you, then you're better off not being born. I remember as right before my bar mitzvah, years ago, back in the 1900s, when I went to buy new shoes for my bar mitzvah, and I told the guy, the shoe salesman, I said, as soon as I walk into the parking lot, the shoes look used. I want them to have that brand new look for a couple weeks. So he takes me to the front of the store, shows me the shoes on display. He says, this shoe over there, my grandfather put it up 40 years ago when he opened the store. You want to keep your shoes to look brand new? Do what my grandfather did. Don't wear it. Well, what's the purpose? And that's the truth with our soul. If the goal is to give it back to God the way it was given to us, then don't be born. If my goal, if I'm going to lend you $100 and I want the same $100 back, I'm not going to use it. Nobody's going to use it. If you lend somebody and you give him a check for $100 and 10 years later he returns the same check, it was a waste. The purpose is to use it, invest it, play with it, do something, and make something out of it. So our goal when we're born is we're given a soul, and we don't return the soul the same way we got it. We return it so much better, because there's a combination between a soul and a human being that each one needs the other. The Talmud has a beautiful parable that makes it easier to understand. There were two people. One person that unfortunately had his legs cut off, and he wasn't able to walk. And there's another person that was blind, and wasn't able to see. So they were both sitting together one day, and they were like reminiscing of all of their problems, because misery loves company. Everyone, you can't do this. Oh, I can't do this. I wish I had this. And they got back together, and they said, you know what? Maybe we could combine both of our skills. I can't see, but I could walk. You can't walk, but you could see. So why don't you get on my back? And you'll be my eyes, and I'll be your legs. And together, they worked together for a couple of years. They did some things together. One day they get caught, and they're taken to jail. And they're brought out a couple of days later in front of a judge. And the judge, and you try to imagine the judge is sitting, and one person is being pushed in a wheelchair, and the other person is coming with his guide stick. And the judge says, there is no punishment that could fit the crime, because each one of you is only 50% of the problem. So the only way to come up with a proper punishment is to put the one without the legs on top of the shoulder of the guy who's blind, and come up with a punishment that would fit for this unit, for the two of them together. And so too is us. The body cannot perform anything without the soul, and vice versa. The soul cannot do anything without the body. And that's why, in our tradition, all this that we're doing, the burial and the way we go ahead with burial, is all temporary, because we believe that at the coming of Mashiach, when the Messiah comes, there's going to be Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. Everybody's going to wake up, and that's a prayer that we're going to say at the cemetery. And you will continue getting reward, because both of them needed each other. In the meantime, until Tchias HaMesim, while we put somebody in the burial plot, you get every person who had passed on, they live off all the good deeds that they have done until now. But everything that your mother has done came to a stop the day she passed away. And she continues living through her legacy, through those she leaves over, family and friends. As the Talmud refers to children as the feet of their parents. In Aramaic, the Talmud says, Bra kare de avua. The children are the feet of the parents. You will continue walking for your mother. Every time you have an idea, something comes up to you, and you want to follow what your mother would have done. How would she react to this? Or something to say something kind to somebody, or sometimes not to say something, or to do things in her memory, giving charity, doing a mitzvah, making it to a synagogue, to a temple, to say the Kaddish, to do anything that you could do, even though it seems minor to you, but you're doing it for her, and that's the only thing that she is going to nourish because she's living now in a spiritual world. Every year, the day of her passing, the anniversary of her passing, which in Yiddish is called a Yortzeit, a year time, for us it may seem as a sad day, but for her it'll be the happiest day. Because for her, they call her into the heavenly court, and they see how much have you grown from last year, and that all depends on the growth of all of us. What we do in her memory, what we do, all the great values she leaves behind, that we could emulate her, and we could try to learn from her ways. By doing that, it will be a great elevation for her. So, to sum it up, she is still with us. She will continue living with us, through us. She continues living through us. Every good deed, everything you do, especially if you do it in her memory or the things that she taught you, will continue her life. It's just a new chapter. It's important to know more about her, and we have her brother and her 3 sons are going to come up in a moment and share with us different thoughts about her or different lessons that we could learn. There's, unfortunately, her sister wasn't able to come today. We have her brother here, but I would like to read a little note from her sister. A little bit of my sister will always live in me. Her kindness, laughter, and love live on in every memory. It hurts to say goodbye, but I'm grateful for every moment. When I was 8 years old, my sister got her driver's license. She took me with her new drive. She took me with her to drive the new car home. I was excited. Of course, looking back, I should have been very nervous. Well, back then, things were different. You know, there was no seatbelts back then. When I became an aunt at 10 years old, I was over the moon. My sister trusted me to babysit my precious nephew. Probably you should have been nervous back then, too. And the 2 who have arrived later. My beloved nephews, I'm so sorry for your loss. And she signs off, Peggy Liner. Also, before I hand over the mic, I'd like to mention, when you live a good life, a life that you interact with other people and you're always busy and you have a great relationship with people, sometimes not meaning to do anything bad, but sometimes you end up not saying hello to somebody and they get insulted, or sometimes you talk to somebody too long and now they're upset. It's so hard to know what people have in mind, and people's moods change daily. So it's very difficult to live a good life, a full life, and not hurt somebody somewhere in the way. So therefore, we ask everybody, if you could please forgive her. God forbid nobody should have anything against her, so she could go up to the world of truth, the Olam HaEmes, without any speed bumps, and vice versa. If anyone slighted her, if anyone wasn't respectful to her, or they didn't visit enough, or they weren't there for her as much as they should have, we ask you to forgive them, so we could go, so everybody has an easier time in the spiritual home. I'd like to ask her brother Ed, who came in all the way from LaGuardia Airport, although he was able to come through Westchester County, but who wants to be in Detroit for 6.5 hours? So I'd like to ask you to please come up, and maybe if you could share with us a couple words.
Thank you.
There's a mic.
Sheila was 3 years older than me. When I was about 3, we lived in the Bronx in a 4-story building, a real walk-up. My mother decided to leave me napping alone in the bedroom. She asked Sheila, "Please go up and see if Edward is still asleep." Sheila went up, started to shake me, and yelled, "Edward, are you asleep?" By that time, I definitely was not asleep anymore. As we grew a little older, Sheila discovered that she needed help with her punching techniques. I was suddenly very available for them. and I was very useful until our younger sister Peggy was born, and I was able to practice my own on Peggy. As we got into our teens, I went to an all-boys high school. One day, we're in the lunchroom, and it's very noisy. It suddenly grows very quiet. An attractive girl comes walking in, and all these 15, 16, and 17-year-old boys are watching her avidly as she approaches me. In her hand is a brown paper bag. I had forgotten my lunch. My mother insisted that she bring it to school so that I wouldn't miss a meal. She was so good. As we became teenagers, I discovered she had some very nice-looking girlfriends. Unfortunately, they were not interested in me. As she married Dave, along came Elliot, and then Scott, and I used to play softball Saturday mornings and then join them for dinner, and then I would babysit the two lovely children. Eventually, Mark was born. I didn't do any more babysitting, but we had some very good family gatherings. We had picnics where the whole family would show up. We had adventures in Atlantic City where Sheila and Dave would gamble, although I don't recall them ever winning any money. As time passed, our visits were just weddings, bar mitzvahs, and other affairs. We finally settled into telephone calls 2 or 3 times a week, and that was the last time that we spoke to Sheila. I will miss her greatly.
All right, thank you. I'd like to ask her sons to come up, and you guys figure out who's going to go last.
I was asked not to do a TED Talk, so this will be more of an Instagram, but for those of you who know me, sometimes I can talk, and that's often been part of my career. First, I'd like to thank all of you here. It's very much appreciated, and a big thank you to Mark for all his time, effort, energy, and more, for all you did for Mom in the end. If it wasn't for you, things would have been much worse. How does one paint a picture of a loved one's life in a few minutes? Recently, I found myself wishing that I knew more of what my mom's life was like when she was a little girl or a young woman. Her dreams, aspirations, I felt sad that I didn't know. Perhaps her main goal was just simply to be a mom. My mom, as many knew her, was a mixed bag. She could be stubborn, stingy, and scolding. On the other hand, when she let her veil down, she could be charming, beautiful, helpful, bright, caring, and very much fun to be with. Mom, we observed you like hawks. It's a common theme for children at times to fear our parents. Wrath, should we make a mistake. Perhaps all you were doing was teaching us all along. As I look back, I realized that you, in your own way, were teaching us. You were teaching us what to do, but in a different fashion. You were also teaching us what not to do. It is said wisdom and profound lessons often emerge from the most unexpected sources. My mom had the most infectious laugh. It involved all of her and quite often resulted in tears. I found that I enjoyed watching comedies even more when she was around. Seeing her laugh as a result of my children's actions were some of the most memorable moments in my life. Hearing her sing, "That's the way, I like it," with her New York accent is one of my mom's classics. Her laugh usually led to others following suit. I would like to point out that my mom once laughed hysterically what had an abscess in my heel cut open without anesthesia. I couldn't believe she actually laughed, considering the pain I was in. It did distract me for a while. There are lessons. Mom, you influenced us in ways you probably couldn't measure. I alluded to the fact that I knew little of my mom's adolescence, which leads me to the first lesson. Let your loved ones know your stories. Who are you? Where do you came from? When appropriate, your dreams. Lesson 2. This was the earliest lesson. Help around the house. Sometimes my brothers and I learned that when we helped with cleaning, we learned to tame the dragon. Being preemptive and helpful was a powerful lesson that served me well, especially with irritating managers in my life. When we cleaned, my mom played music. She softened, became pleasant, and sometimes paid us a grand total of 25 cents. Even today, at times, I enjoy cleaning, just not all the time. Lesson 3, if you want love, show it. Don't expect the other person to initiate or meet you halfway. One of my best friends in high school came from a very traditional Italian family. At the beginning of my senior year, he said, if you want to have a good senior year, you have to get along with your mom. Ew. I often observed him hug, kiss, and even pick up his mom. My mom and I didn't have that kind of relationship. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to him. After graduation, I decided to heed my friend's wisdom. I hoped it wasn't too late. It wasn't. Lesson 4, vulnerability. And be there for those you love. After my relationship with my mom improved, she started divulging about some events in her life. She brought up something that occurred when she was younger that was very traumatic for her. She went on to add that maybe that's why that's the way she is. That saddened me to the core. I now had a chance to be there for my mom. Developing empathy can be very powerful. My relation with my mom would never be the same. My mom, it turned out, was a person too. Lesson 5. You don't have to keep it in when you have a support team. Very recently, we watched the Star Trek reboot, and after the death of his mother, Spock has a crisis to the anger he is feeling. His father is there to console him, and his comment hits home. Spock comments, it would be unwise to say what I'm feeling. Spock's father says, what is necessary is never unwise. A little context here. My mom and I loved watching sci-fi movies. That Star Trek movie was also the last movie I watched with her. I had experienced a trauma in my first sleepaway camp, but as many children feel, it was my fault, and I was afraid to tell my mom. A couple of years later, I eventually told my mom. She was so upset. Had I divulged this earlier, she would have gone to war with them. I believe it. I wish I had gone to her more often during crisis. Somehow she always seemed to make a difference. Maybe she just wanted to be needed. My mom, in a matter of speaking, paved the way to become a dietitian. She was fearless and creative in the kitchen. If something didn't come out right, it was just a learning experience. I could fill a book about my mom's impact on my food experience. Mom taught me how to cook, but from an unconventional perspective. And if you'd like to know that story, I'll tell it later. My mom made vegetarian foods way before vegetarian became popular. My mom taught me the concept of doctoring up recipes and diluting items that were either too sweet or too oily. She also taught me knowing, without knowing, the impact of scarcity and its role with food. My mom, you could be full of surprises. Even when we thought we had figured it out, you could still surprise us. I remember when I had a car and the radiator blew, she drove me to a number of junkyards to find another one and never complained. Years later, I was in a volleyball league and invited my brothers to participate. Mom asked if she could come. One watch. What? She never came to watch. She sat in the stands and cheered in a way that sounded as if there was a whole cheering section. Way to go, Mom. Once I was listening to music in my bedroom. My mom happened to be standing by the doorway when the Gentry song came on. I Keep on Dancing began to play. I just happened to glance over my mom, and there she was, dancing like she was an extra in a beach blanket bingo movie. She had the biggest smile. I watched, astounded. Who was this person? Although she seemed embarrassed by my reaction, I have to admit, I was impressed. The last surprise, Mom. You took your diagnosis. You were so brave. You could have complained and been in tears, but you went there. You went to a place and just lived. You were okay. Recently I heard the song, I'll Stand By You by the Pretenders. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. On many occasions in my life, my mom was there for me. I can recall her exact words and her impeccable timing, for better or worse. She said, you know, no matter what, we support you. I'll always be there for you. Mom, I wish I had told you when I had the chance. Thank you for always being there. I appreciate it. In some cultures, they believe the child chooses the parents. I want you to know how proud I am of you and to have you as my mom. I picked the right mom. Be at peace. We'll miss you. You were loved. Thank you.
I guess the last time that I had to speak when my father passed away, our stories were almost the same, and somebody thought we almost plagiarized each other. But I'm glad to tell you that my story is going to be a little bit different and a little bit different perspective. First, I wanted to thank you all for being here, for supporting our family during this very difficult time. Your presence truly means more to us than you really know. It's incredibly hard to say goodbye to someone you've known your entire life. No matter how long we're given, we're never really prepared. We all wish life could somehow be extended indefinitely, but as Mom would probably remind us, well, that's not how it works, and she would say it very directly. For those of you who knew my mother, you know she was talkative, kind, and very, very strong-willed. You heard a little bit of that from my brother Elliot. You could give her advice on just about anything, but whether she took it or not was entirely up to her. She listened politely and then did exactly what she wanted anyway. And that was Mom. She loved cooking, especially soups of every kind and flavor. If there was a pot on the stove, chances are it was a soup. Could be a mystery, but sure it would be very tasty. She loved watching TV, recording her favorite shows, and spending time with family during the holidays. Even though my brothers and I lived in different states, her greatest hope was always that we could spend it all the time together. She also loved going to Vegas with my dad and playing the slot machines. There was even a time when they talked seriously about moving there, but somehow Cleveland won out. I'm not sure Vegas was quite ready for her. And then growing up in New York, New Jersey, and then later Cleveland, I would describe my mom as a tough cookie, almost like a drill sergeant. And honestly, she had to be. She was raising 3 boys, which alone probably qualifies someone for that title. We weren't always easy, but she was determined, disciplined, and strong, and she absolutely succeeded in raising us to stand on our own. I wanted to tell you a little story that I just kind of thought about last night when I was back in college, and she said, "You need to be home at like 1 o'clock in the morning." And I'm like, "Okay, Mom, I'll be home." Well, did I show up at 1 o'clock? No, I did not show up at 1. It was probably a couple of hours after that. And the door was locked. She locked the door. And it wasn't just the front door, it was the screen door too. So there was absolutely no way to get in the house. And I'm in college, what am I going to do? Stay at a hotel or whatever? So I decide there's got to be a way in the house. So I walk around the house, all the windows are locked and everything. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And Mark, his room was below. He made the den a bedroom. So the windows were like, basement windows. One was open. I was able to slide it open. I stick my head in. It's totally dark. And I said, "Mark, open the door." So Mark's sleeping, and I'm calling for him. "Mark." So he wakes up, and he's looking around the room. I thinks he's dreaming. He goes back to sleep. It's like, "Mark, Mark, wake up." And he wakes up again, and he's looking around. All he sees is like a head sticking out of a window. So, yeah, he thinks he's dreaming. And I said, "Open the darn door." So he goes out and lets me in. But the lesson learned from that is after that, I don't think I was ever home after 1 o'clock after that. So my mother kind of taught me a lesson. So I'm going to tell you another story. I'm going to tell you a story about it's a family story that my brothers and I still laugh about. And I'm thankful for Elliot that he didn't tell you about this one, because it's really about all of us. So we were at this gathering. My mom announced that she wished she had girls in the family because she had to deal with 3 boys. That moment became known as the Horowitz curse. Perhaps you have heard this before, but it wasn't the most flattering name, but what followed made it legendary. Between Elliot and me, Mom ended up with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 granddaughters: Michelle, Stacy, Jennifer, and Kayla. Years later, Elliot called me and he said, "Hey, Scott." Yeah, I said, "What, Elliot?" He says, "Hey, I broke the Horowitz curse." And he and Rachel were expecting a boy. And that's Bennett, who sits right before us. Looking back, the word curse doesn't fit at all. It was really the Horowitz blessing. Every one of Mom's grandchildren is happy, healthy, and deeply loved, and I know that brought her enormous pride and joy. When my brothers and I learned that my mom had stage 4 lung and brain cancer, we were devastated. But we came together and we rallied around her, just hoping and supporting her through some treatment. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way that we prayed they would. She endured tremendous pain, and watching that was incredibly hard. Still, we can find comfort knowing she is now free from pain and finally at rest. For as long as I can remember, Mom had a routine like clockwork. She would call at least twice a week. "How you doing? What's new? How are the girls?" Those calls were constant in my life. In the last weeks, when those calls were no longer possible, something felt deeply missing. And now that absence is something I will always feel. Mom, we love you, and we will miss you more than words can express. Your strength, your humor, your stubborn determination, and your love for family will stay with us forever. You shaped who we are, and your memory will continue to guide us. I'd like to close with a short prayer and thought. May her memory be a blessing, may her soul find peace, and may the love she gave continue to live through her children and grandchildren. Rest peacefully, Mom. You are finally free from pain, and you will forever live in our hearts and minds.
not as eloquent as my uncle or my brothers, but I'll share some words. I'm going to continue with the soup theme. If anybody ever watched the show Seinfeld, they know the character, the soup Nazi. Well, Mom was the anti-soup Nazi. She was always trying to get people to try her soups. If anyone came to the house, they'd be assured that they'd be offered the soup. I've been channeling her and trying to make my own soups. Someone has to carry the torch now. She loved her little gambling excursions with my father and watching TV, especially horror, which drove my father crazy. She was a very strong and tough woman, probably one of the toughest women I've ever known. She always stood up and fought for what she believed in, and believe me, she didn't take anything from anybody. She loved and cherished her family and friends, and everyone who met her always had good things to say about her. I'll have to share a story. We had a dog growing up, a miniature schnauzer. And if anybody knows what they look like, they have beards. Well, she would cut his hair, and she would cut his beard off. Poor dog. I have fond memories of hearing him growling and snarling and the sound of teeth biting the wooden and metal brushes and her yelling at him to stop it. If dogs do go to heaven, I wonder if she will be cutting his hair or will he be getting back at her and cutting her hair. You're with Dad now. Rest in peace. I miss you, and I'll always love you. Thank you.
Thank you all for all the kind words. At this point, I'd like to ask if those of you who feel comfortable to stand, we're going to say the memorial prayer. Then we're going to proceed to the cemetery. Right, if those of you could stand. El malei rachamim, shoichein b'amroimim, ametzei menucha nechaino, al kanfei hashchino, v'malois kedoshim utoirim, ki zoyar ki mazirim, es nishmas shoishano shol choli oilamo, ba'avur shanachnu mispalim badas koras nishmoso, Began Eden, Teimunu Chaso, Lachem, Balarachamim, Yastiro, Besesek Nafov Lomim, V'yitservet Rachamish Nismoso, Adonai Hunachloso, V'sanuach B'shalom HaMishkavo, V'noimar Omein. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, and the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine like the brightness of the firmament, onto the soul of Sheila, the daughter of Leo and Sadie, who has gone to her world, and for whose memory we pray. May her repose be in paradise. May the Master of compassion bring her under God's wings for eternity, and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage. May she repose in a resting place in peace. Let us all respond, Amen. You may be seated, and now we'll have the direction from our director. What's next?